All right, so this is just me going through a few more problems on this. This is a 2 by 2, so again, I can rewrite this as a matrix, and I'm just going to move this second row up to the top, so it's going to be 1, -3, -16, and then on the bottom it's going to be -3, 11, 58. So this is almost like a 2 by 2 elimination problem. Okay, I want to get rid of this 3 right here. So I'm going to multiply 3 times this whole row. So if I call this A, row 1, I'm going to go 3 times A. Then I'm going to add that to row B. So if I call this B, so I'm going to go 3 times A plus B. Okay, so 3 times A is 3, -9, -48. And then this bottom one is still -3, 11, 58. So when I add those together, I get 0, 2, 10. So if I call this C, now I'm going to take C and divide it by 2. Okay, so that's going to be 0, 1, 5. So I know in my answer that I want it to be 1, 0, then some number, and then 0, 1, and some number. So I'm going to match this picture up with this over here, and I see that there's a 0 at the beginning, so I want this 0 to be on the bottom row. So my new matrix is now 0, 1, 5 on the bottom, and my top row has not changed. That's still 1, -3, -16. Okay, so now if I call this D and this E, I'm going to go 3 times E and add it to D. Okay, so I'm going to go 0, 3, 15. That's 3 times all of this bottom row. Add it to this top row, 1, -3, -16. And I get 1, 0, -1. So that replaces this top row. So it's 1, 0, -1, 0, 1, 5. Okay. So that's how that works. Most of the time I just think of these as row 1 and row 2s instead of A, B, C, D, and E. If the A, B, C, D, E helps you better, do it that way. Okay. So now onto this next page. These are all divisible by 2 on the top, so I am going to divide these all by 2. It just makes it so I can work with smaller numbers. So my matrix is now 1, -4, 27, -2. And this is 1, -2, 14, -1. And then 1, -3, 19, -3. So now I have my matrix. Remember, we want this thing to look like this over here in the left-hand corner. 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, not 1, but some number at the end, sorry. Okay, this is in reduced row echelon form. Okay, this is just row echelon form when you have zeros on the left and ones down the diagonal. That's called row echelon form. Row echelon form. And reduced row echelon form is when you have zeros on the right-hand side of these ones down the diagonal. Okay, so this is also known as your identity matrix. So now that I've got that, I want these ones to disappear. See how they're gone right here? And then the next thing I want is that to disappear. So I'm going to do these first two. Now, if I combine these two ones right now, sure, they'd disappear, but that would only replace one of these two rows. I've got to replace both rows. So that's why we use the top row along with it. So I use the top row in that one, and I use the top row in that one. And it works out nice because these are all ones. So just for the sake of row ones and all that stuff, I know some of you like A's, B's, C, D's, and E's. I'll try A, B's, C, D's on this one, and then from there I'll stick with row 1 and row 2. So if I call this top row A, I'm going to go, so if this is A and this is B and this is C, I'm going to go A plus and -B. Okay, so that's going to be 1, -4, 27, -2. B is going to be -1, +2, -14, +1. Check my signs, negative, positive, negative, positive, okay. So that becomes a 0, that becomes negative 2. 27 minus 14 is 13, negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So this is going to be my new row 2, okay, because that's what I replaced it, was my new row 2, and I'll call this D. Okay, that's a D. Now I'm going to go A plus and negative C. So I have A again, 1, negative 4, 27, negative 2, and then negative 1, 3, negative 19, positive 3. So that makes 0, negative 1. 27 minus 19 is 8, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So this is my new row 3. I'm going to call it E. Okay, so I've got these two to be zeros. See how this is a 0 at the beginning and a 0 at the beginning of row 3 and of row 2. Now on row 3 it needs to become 0. So to do that, it says to add row 2 and row 3 together. So I'm going to do D and E together. Okay, so I need to multiply E by negative 2. So see how this says E? That's a negative 1 and that's a negative 2. Well, I need those to be opposite numbers. One positive, one negative. So I'm going to go negative 2 times E and add that to D. Okay, so this is E, that's D. So negative 2 times E is 0, 2, negative 16, negative 2. Add that to my row 2 up here, or to D. So 0, negative 2, 13, negative 1. I get 0, 0, negative 3, negative 3. Well, those are all divisible by negative 3, so I divide these all by negative 3. And I get 0, 0, 1, 0. This is my new row 3. We're going to call this F. Okay, so just so you can kind of see where we're at, what we have, that's not 0 right there, that's 1. So we have 0, 0, 1, 1. This is, we call that F. Right here we have 0, negative 2, 13, negative 1. We called that one D. And we have 1, negative 4, 27, negative 2, and that one was A. Okay, so that's the rows that we have in here. So now what I want to do is I want to get, so if I'm looking over here, I've got this 0, I've got that 0, I've got this 1. I now want to get this 0. Okay, so that says row 3 and row 2. So see this 1 right here? I need this 1 to become a 13 so that I can make this 13 disappear. Now when I multiply it by 13, that's just the multiply on the outside. Inside of here, it does not change. It's done. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to go negative 13 times F and add it to D. Okay, so that's going to look like this. 0, 0, negative 13, negative 13. And D is 0, negative 2, 13, negative 1. So when I add those together, I get 0, negative 2, 0, negative 14. I'll divide these all by negative 2. And I get 0, 1, 0, 7. So we're going to call that G. And that row is done as well. So really what I have is on the bottom, I have 0, 0, 1, 1, and that's F. I have 0, 1, 0, 7, which is G. And I still have my top row. See this 27 right here? So if I'm looking over here, I've done this step and I've done this step. And here I've done all of these. Okay, I need to get a new row 1 is what I'm working with now. I need this 27 to disappear, so I'm going to use this F row to make that 27 disappear. So I'm going to multiply all of F by negative 27. So negative 27F plus A. So that's going to be 0, 0, negative 27, negative 27. Now A is 1, negative 4, 27, negative 2. So that's 1, negative 4, 0, negative 29. We'll call that H. So now I need this. So I'm looking over here. I've got that 0. I need this 0 right here on the left-hand side. Okay, I need this -4 to disappear. So the way I do that is I use this G because it's got a number in the middle spot and zeros everywhere else. So I can use this to get rid of this -4 in the middle and keep the rest the same. So the way I do that is I am going to multiply all of G by 4. So I'm going to go 4G plus H. Okay, so that's going to look like this: 0, 4, 0, -28, and then H is 1, -4, 0, -29. Let's see. I feel like somewhere I've messed up on a negative sign. Hold on. Okay, I found it. You probably found it too. Right here, that's a +7, so I didn't look at it up here. I was looking at it right here. But negative divided by negative is a positive, so that's a 28. So now I get 1, 0, 0, -1. So that's my final row 1. So I'm about out of room. I'll have to put it, I can put it in here. 1, 0, 0, -1. So what that means, X is where my first column, Y, Z. So there's X, Y, Z. So it has 1X is -1, 1Y is 7, and Z equals 1. So that's what that means. Now, if I were to do it this way, again, I'm going to take these matrices, what I have right here, I'm going to put them in here. So 1, -4, 27, -2. Skip 2 lines. 1, -2, 14, -1. Skip 3 lines. 1, -3, 19, -3. So now I know that this needs to be a 0 and this needs to be a 0, right? So what I do is, if I call these A, B, and C, I'm in essence going to do the same thing that I did here, but just not show all the work. Okay, so what I'm really going to do, I'll just work from right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go A plus a -B. Okay, so 1 plus a -1 is 0. -4 plus a -2. So really what I'm doing is multiplying all these by negative, then adding it. That makes a -2. Change the sign on this. 27 minus 14 is 13. -2 plus 1 is -1. Okay, so if you wanted to think of it this way, you just went like this and changed all those signs. So I'm going to do the same thing now. I'm going to go A plus a -C. Really, so I'm just going A minus C. So 1 minus 1, -4 minus a -3, that turns into a +3. 27 minus 19 is 8. -2 minus a -3 is 1. Okay, so that's what I've done so far. Now what I'm going to do, so this was A minus B, this was A minus C. Now what I'm going to do, let's call this D, let's call this one E. Get rid of those. I'm going to go -2 times E and add it to D. So 0 plus 0 is 0. -2 times this, negative times negative makes a positive, adds it to that. So you know that's going to be 0. I could have just written it. That's the whole idea, but just to make sure. -2 times 8 is -16. Plus 13 is -3. -2 times 1 is -2. Combines with the -1 to make -3. Won't let me write there because of the recording screen. So now I can divide those all by -3. So I just took E and divided it by -3. So now I'm going to call this F. Okay. I'm going to use F to get rid of this 13 right here. So I'm going to go negative 13 times F and add it to D. So that's going to stay as 0. That's going to stay as negative 2 because I'm multiplying this that has a 0 there. Multiply this by negative 13 and add it to this becomes 0. 1 times negative 13 is negative 13. Combined with negative 1 is negative 14. So I get 0. I'm going to divide this all by negative 2. 1, 0, 7. Call that G. Now I'm going to use F to get rid of this 27 up here. So these two don't change, and this is going to become a 0. So negative 27 times 1 is negative 27. Negative 27 times 1 is still negative 27. Combine it here makes negative 29. So I multiplied all of this, so I went negative 27 times F and added that to A. Okay, so now what I'm going to use G right here. And I want this negative 4 to disappear, so I'm going to multiply G by 4 and add that to H. Okay, so I know this is going to turn into a 0 and that's going to turn into a 0. I'm using this row right here. 27 times 4 is 28. Minus 29 is negative 1. And that 1 stays the same because I used this row that had a 0 there. So then these are my answers that go in the matrix: 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 7, and 1, 0, 0, negative 1. So just another way of looking at it using that table. So I'm not going to use A, B, C, D all on this one. I'm just going to stick with row 1, row 2, row 3. I am going to swap out row 1 and row 2 just so that I have a 1 to begin with. So 1, negative 2, 1, 3. Negative 2, 5, negative 4, negative 4. And then 1, negative 5, 9, negative 5. Biggest thing, people make a mistake right here at the beginning, so I'm going to check my work. 1, negative 5, 9, negative 5. Negative 2, 5, negative 4, negative 4. 1, negative 2, 1, 3. Okay. Or they'll mess up when they write it down, so I might have done that as well. So just like I've done in the past on the other videos, I'm going to do this first so that you can see it. So here's 1, negative 2, 1, 3. I'm going to skip 3 lines, or 2 lines. Negative 2, 5, negative 4, negative 4. Skip 3. 1, negative 5, 9, negative 5. So I'm going to go 2 times all of this, so that makes 2, negative 4, 2, and 6. I'm going to add that to this middle row, so I get 0, 1, negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. 6 minus 4 is 2. Now I'm going to multiply it all by a negative, so I get negative 1, positive 2. Negative 1, negative 3. So I multiplied it all by a negative, so this one would go away. So 1 plus a negative 1 is 0. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. 9 minus 1 is 8. Negative 5 and a negative 3 make negative 8. Okay, so now I'm onto this spot. I want this negative 3 to disappear, so I'm going to multiply all of this by 3. So I get 0, 3, negative 6, and 6. So 0 and 0 make 0. 3 plus a negative 3 makes 0. 8 minus 6 is 2. Negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2. Now I'm going to divide this all by 2, so I get 0, 0, 1, negative 1. And that's my final row for this. So now I want this negative 2 to disappear. So I'm going to multiply all of this by 2. So I get 0, 0, 2, negative 2. So 0 plus 0 is still 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 2 plus negative 2 is 0. Negative 2 plus 2 is also 0. Okay, that row is done. I don't have to divide, so I don't need that space. Now up here I want this 1 to disappear. So I'm going to multiply all this by negative 1. That's still 0, that's still 0. That's negative 1, and that's positive 1. So 1 plus 3 is 4. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0, and these stay the same because those are zeros. Okay, now I want this negative 2 to disappear, so I multiply all this by 2. So that's 0, 2, 0, 0. So that stays as a 4, that stays as a 0. Negative 2 plus 2 becomes 0, and there's my 1. So 1, 0, 0, 4, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, negative 1 is going to be my answer. Okay, so we're all done. You can move on to the next one. So here's doing it out this way. I'm going to go 2 times row 1 and add it to row 2. So that becomes 2, negative 4, 2, 6, which in essence is what I did over here. Negative 2, 5, negative 4, negative 4. That makes 0, 1, negative 2, 2. This is a new row 2. Okay. Now to get row 3 for this to become a 0 at the beginning. So remember, in your process, you're trying to go 1, 0, 0. That's the first thing you're trying to do is get that 0. Okay, so I want this 1 to disappear. So I multiply all of the top row by negative 1, add it to row 3, and it's going to make a new row 3. So I have negative 1, 2, negative 1, negative 3, 1, negative 5, 9, negative 5. So that makes 0, negative 3, 8, negative 8. Okay, so that's my new row 3. Now we want this to become a 0. And it says row 2 and row 3 combined. So row 2 and row 3 we're going to combine. If I combine them right now, these won't make 0. So I'm going to go 3 times row 2. So that's going to be 0, 3, negative 6, 6. So that's 3 times row 2. I'm going to add it to row 3, and it's going to make a new row 3. So I have 0, negative 3, 8, negative 8. So that makes 0, 0, 2, negative 2. I divide all of this by 2. I get 0, 0, 1, negative 1. So I am now to here on this process, and I've done to here. And I normally, at this point, write this down again. So 1, negative 2, 1, 3. Row 2 is this one. 0, 1, negative 2, 2. And then this is my bottom row, 0, 0, 1, negative 1. Okay, so that's where I'm at right now. I want this negative 2 to disappear. So I'm going to go negative 2 times row 3. You see right here it says row 3 and row 2. Add that to row 2. Let's see, I don't need a negative. That's already a negative up there. And it's going to make a new row 2. So just 2 times row 3 is going to be 0, 0, 2, negative 2. Add that to row 2, 0, 1, negative 2, 2. That makes 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay, so this bottom row doesn't change. It changes when I multiply it on the outside, but on the inside it's done. This is 0, 1, 0, 0. So now I'm working on getting this 1 to disappear. Again, I use row 3 and row 1. I'm going to have to multiply row 3 by a negative. So I get 0, 0, negative 1, 1. Add that to my top row. 1, negative 2, 1, 3. I get 1, negative 2, 0, 4. Okay, and this makes a new row 1. So now I need this negative 2 to disappear, and it says row 2 plus row 1. So I'm going to multiply this row 2 all by 2. Okay, so I'm going to go 2 times row 2 and add it to row 1, because this is my new row 1. So 2 times all that is 0, 2, 0, 0. My row 1 is 1, negative 2, 0, 4. So I have 1, 0, 0, 4. So 1, 0, 0, 4. Okay, and that's my answer. X is 4, Y is 0, Z is negative 1. So on this one, I need to get my X's and Y's all the same side. I'm going to minus this 11Y to this side. So I have 3X minus 11Y plus 13Z equals 65. And then on this one, I'm going to minus the 3Y over to here. So I have X minus 3Y plus 3Z equals 15. And down here I have to do nothing, so I can just write it down again. Okay, so now everything's set up. I'm going to write my matrix down. I'm going to swap row 1 and row 2. So I have 1, negative 3. I like to get a 1 right here if possible. 3 and 15. Then I have 3, negative 11, 13, 65. And negative 2, 4. Make sure I can see that negative. Negative 2, 4, negative 7, negative 25. Okay, so right off, I'm going to multiply row 1 by negative 3. So negative 3 times row 1, add it to row 2, and it's going to make a new row 2. So this is going to be negative 3, 9, negative 9, negative 45. And this is going to be 3, negative 11, 13, 65. So I now have 0, negative 2, 4, and 20. Since these are all divisible by 2, I'm going to do that. 0, negative 1, 2, 10. So this is my new row 2. Okay, so now what I need is a new row 3. So I'm going to go 2 times row 1, because that's a negative 2. And I'm going to need that to be a 2. So negative 2 times row 1 plus row 3. And it's going to make a new row 3. So 2 times row 1 is 2, negative 6, 6, 30. And row 3 is negative 2, 4, negative 7, negative 25. So that makes 0, negative 2, negative 1, 5. So that's my new row 3. So now what I'm going to do is I want this negative 2 to disappear. So I am going to go negative 2 times row 2 and add it to my row 3. So negative 2 times this orange row is going to be 0, 2, negative 4, negative 20. Add it to row 3 is going to be 0, negative 2, negative 1, 5. So I get 0, 0, negative 5, negative 15. Divide these all by negative 5, I get 0, 0, 1, 3. So like I said, I normally take this opportunity right here and fill out my matrix with my row 2. That's why I put a highlight under here so I could find it. 0, negative 1, 2, 10. And my new row 3, which is all done. So now it's just a matter of working backwards. I want this 2 to disappear, then this 3, and then that negative 3. So now I'm going to multiply this bottom row all by negative 2. So 0, 0, negative 2, negative 6. So that's negative 3 times row 3. I'm going to add that to row 2. Okay. So 0, negative 1, 2, 10. So that makes 0, negative 1, 0, 4. Divide it all by a negative 1, I get 0, 1, 0, negative 4. This is my new row 2, and it's done. Okay. So here's row 3, here's row 2. Now I want this 3 to disappear on the top, so I have to use row 3 because that's the only one that has a place, something of value here. Okay. This one has 0 in that spot, so I want to use that one. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by negative 1. So negative 3 times row 3. I think I said 1. I really meant 3. So that's going to be 0, 0, negative 3, negative 9. Add that to this top row. 1, negative 3, 3, 15. So that makes 1, negative 3, 0, 6. So now I have a 0 in this spot. So now I need this negative 3 to disappear. So I'm going to use this row 2. Okay, and that's a negative 3. So I need to multiply row 2 by a positive 3. So 3 times row 2. Add it to this is a new row 1. Okay, so this was added to row 1 to make a new row 1. So now I add 3 times row 2, which is that purple one. 0, 3, 0, negative 12. Add that to my row 1, which is right here. I don't really need to write it down again, but I will. So that's 1, 0, 0, negative 6. So I'm all done. 1, 0, 0, negative 6. Row 2 is 0, 1, 0, negative 4. Row 3, that other star, 0, 0, 1, 3. So again, if I write it this way, I just take those coefficients, my matrix, okay? Write those down, skip 3, -2, 4, -7, -25. So it's the same thing as what we did, just a different way to organize it. So I multiply all this by -3, so that's going to be -3, 9, -3, -45. Add it to here. I know that's going to be 0. I know here's going to be 0, and we're done. Okay. 9 minus 11 is -2. -3 plus 13 is 10. 65 minus 45 is 20. Okay, so now I'm going to scribble those out. Multiply this all by 2 because that's a -2. So that makes 2, -6, 6, and 30. So 2 and -2 is 0, -6 and 4 is -2, 6 and -7 is -1, 30 minus 25 is 5. Okay, so now I'm going to work with these ones. I want these to go away, so I'm going to just multiply all that by -1 and add it to this row. Okay, so that's going to be 0, -2 plus 2 is 0, 10 and 1 make 11, 20 and 5 make 25. Somewhere I've goofed up. So far, what I found was that this 10 right here, for some reason I wrote down a 10, but it was -9 plus 13, which should have been 4. So then when I go 4 plus a -1, it makes 3. And 20 minus 5 is 15, which is much better. Now I divide that all by 3, I get 0, 0, 1, 5. Hold on, somewhere I messed up again. Found my mistake. 4 plus 1, remember I have to use that bottom number, is 5. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. So this method works. You just have to make sure you don't mess up. Kind of like over here. It works, but don't mess up or else then you're in big trouble. Kind of like what I was. So now I want this 4, this yellow 4 to disappear. So I use this bottom row. I multiply all this by -4. So that's 0, 0, -4, -12. So these aren't going to change. And 4 plus -4 is going to make 0. And 20 minus 12 makes 8. I divide these all by -2. That makes 0, 1, 0, -4. So now on the top, I want this 3 to disappear, so I use my bottom row. I multiply it all by -3, so that's a -3 and -9. So 15 minus 9 is 6. 3 and -3 make 0, and these haven't changed. Okay. Now I'm going to use this row right here to get rid of that -3, so I need to multiply it all by 3 right here, so that's going to be a 3, 0, and -12. So the 1 and 0 don't change. -3 plus 3 is 0. 0 and 0 is 0. And 6 minus 12 is -6. And now these 3 are the same as these 3 over here. Okay. So it is a long process, I understand. Choose one of these two. I don't care which way. If you want to use, like I did on that first one, use A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, whatever. That's fine. You can kind of see a different way to label things, keep track of it, whatever you want to do. That's fine with me. I realize, like I said, it's a long process. You won't spend as much time because I did 2 processes on each problem. So hopefully you don't spend as much time as what I did on these. So good luck with it, and hopefully this helps you do a little bit more.